Welcome back. Two prominent Democrats now fighting to keep their jobs. Senator Al Franken and Congressman John Conyers, both now facing ethics investigations for alleged sexual misconduct. This weekend, Senator Franken spoke publicly for the first time since several women accused him of groping. He says he's ashamed and embarrassed, but he says he will try to regain the public's trust.
I'm just going to do my job, and I'm going to go forward. I'm going to take responsibility. I'm going to be held accountable, and I'm going to try to be productive in the way I speak about this.
Congressman Conyers, under pressure from Democratic colleagues, announced Sunday he would step aside as the ranking Democrat, the ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee, over allegations of sexual harassment and office abuse, workplace abuse, which he denies. An attorney for one of his accusers says it's unfair that the congressman can tell his side, but her client can't, she says, because she signed a confidentiality agreement.
She worked for him for many years. She's a Democrat. I'm a Democrat. This is not a partisan issue. Congressman Conyers, please release her to tell her side of the story. She has a powerful story to tell.
Let's start with the congressman in the sense that he was under pressure from colleagues. He did step aside. The ranking Democrat, the top Democrat on the House Judiciary Committee. Republicans are obviously in the majority. It seemed a messy process over the weekend. These allegations first came out last week. It was during the Thanksgiving break, so you're waiting to get in touch with people. He has every right to consult his attorneys and everything else. But I just want to play a little bit of Nancy Pelosi here, the House Democratic leader on Meet the Press, who she seemed, frankly, just unprepared, and she had to know this issue was going to come up.
We are strengthened by due process. Just because someone is accused, and was it one accusation? Is it two? I think there has to be. John Conyers is an icon in our country. He has done a great deal to protect women. He will do the right thing in terms of what he knows about his situation, that he's entitled to due process, but women are entitled to due process as well.
It was after this interview that the Congressman Conyers issued his statement saying, I'm going to step aside. One would have thought that they would have coordinated that to make it less messy.
Yeah, that was a very messy episode for Pelosi. She had to put out a statement later as well to clean up that rather disastrous interview. The thing is, there's really a lot to do with internal House Democratic politics in a lot of ways. This Congressional Black Caucus, of which John Conyers is a member, essentially the dean of.
He helped found it.
He helped found it. He founded. They're a very influential faction within within the Democratic caucus. She needs support from various factions within the Democratic caucus to maintain her position atop that party, atop her party. Now, the CBC. For a long time, there are a lot of members who felt that they've been unfairly targeted. They don't get their time to push back, due process, and the like. And she was somewhat acknowledging that, and that's why she responded in a somewhat clumsy manner when she was asked pretty directly about these allegations. It was not a particularly good moment for her. It's one that a lot of Democrats, not just in the CBC, but others are saying she could have handled a lot better.
And it raises the question I think a lot of people outside of Washington are asking is, Congressman Conyers is due. He's innocent until proven guilty. He deserves every opportunity to answer this if he says it is not true. However, the women also deserve an appropriate and respectful forum to come forward and make their case. The process. You have we'll get to Senator Franken in a minute, but the Senate Ethics Committee, the House Ethics Committee, private. We don't know much about them. Some of these investigations drag on forever. Sometimes there's good reason for that on sensitive issues or financial issues and the like. But is there any conversation on Capitol Hill about, even if you have to use the vehicle of the Ethics Committee, doing something to make people more confident in this process?
For starters, what Pelosi said about Conyers in the clip you showed was not the worst thing she said. I mean, she said that we need to give Conyers a little bit of a break because he's been a great advocate for women. It's the same sort of things that we heard about Bill Clinton, that his policy positions exonerate his behavior towards women, and that and she went on to say that because he's an icon in our country, he should be given a great. I mean, you could say the same thing about Donald Trump and to excuse him from his behavior, or Roy Moore, that he has only been accused. There's been no proof. And what we know, based on reporting from Capitol Hill, is that the investigation process, the whole process in terms of investigating claims of sexual harassment, is broken. And so for her to say we need to trust the process, I think, is fraudulent on its face. And we saw her essentially being political in the way of handling this, copping to political reasons because of political pressure, which is precisely the way that we saw Democrats behave in the Clinton years, and we're seeing Republicans behave now. Some Republicans, due to Roy Moore, and what both parties are trying to grapple with, but trying to expel from their ranks.
And to your point, a process that she and Paul Ryan said they didn't even know about when it came to giving settlements from this fund that no one apparently was aware of. So that also it kind of discredits her argument there.
In a lot of ways, too, punting this to the ethics committee is what it is. It's a punt, because the ethics committee is largely a toothless committee in both the House and the Senate. They don't do a whole lot other than slap members on the wrist, write very stern letters saying you've been admonished. Very rarely are you expelled from the Senate. That is in the most extreme situation, or the House. We'll see if it gets to that point. But by them saying, the committee's doing the investigation, in a lot of ways, is itself.
But that was my question, though. Will the leadership send word to those committees and make any necessary changes, if necessary, to say you better get this one right, and you better have, again, you have to respect everybody's privacy, but to the degree you can have transparency, you should have it. And as we continue the conversation, I just wanted, Senator Franken did a number of interviews back home in Minnesota to try to clean this up, including this, where he says that, you know, he does not believe he will face additional allegations.
But have you ever placed a hand on some woman's butt?
You know, I can't say that that hasn't happened. I take thousands and thousands of pictures. Sometimes in crowded and chaotic situations. I can't say I haven't done that. And I am very sorry.
I mean, look, one of the things that all of these episodes are showing is that the kind of swell of people coming forward doesn't discriminate politically on this. And the Democrats are finding out that efforts to try to capitalize politically, using the Roy Moore case, maybe to, you know, gain some advantage in the 2018 midterms, to capitalize on allegations that have been long out there about Donald Trump, that those efforts to make those political are going to be really difficult, because we're in a moment when you know, allegations and accusations and revelations are coming out against both Democrats and Republicans across the board, across industries, you know, and that it's going to be very messy, and it's not a clean thing where you can sort of make a political calculation and know that that's going to help you politically down the road. And maybe that's probably a good thing, right? I mean, if this issue is going to be dealt with in a good way for all these parties, then, you know, politics should drop out of it.
If they can depoliticize it to the degree possible in a town called Washington, D.C., and transparency to the degree that is respectful and respects everybody, to your point about bipartisan. When we come back up next, the Alabama Senate battle, the president says electing a Democrat would be a disaster. Some Republicans say electing Republican Roy Moore would be